You know, sometimes in conflict, the most concerning developments aren't the most visible ones. They evolve kind of under the surface. And today we're looking at something exactly like that really serious recent intelligence about alleged banned chemical weapons use in Ukraine. Okay, let's unpack this. Our source is a detailed AP News report, and it pulls together findings from multiple intelligence agencies. So our mission today is to explore what these agencies are saying, what the implications might be, and, the wider picture of chemical warfare rules. Let's jump right in. The core finding here is coming from Dutch and German intelligence, and it's pretty stark. They're saying Russia is increasing its use of prohibited chemical weapons in Ukraine.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that it's not just one agency's view. This assessment comes specifically from the Netherlands Military Intelligence and Security Service, working directly with the German intelligence service.
Collaboration like that definitely adds weight, doesn't it?
It usually does, yes. It suggests a higher degree of confidence in the findings.
And the chemicals they mention, it's chilling stuff. Chloropicrin, described as a World War I poison gas. It's
Now,
quite a throwback.
it is a grim one, and they also mention CS gas.
Right, the right control agent. But
Yeah,
the context here is completely different from, say, police use.
exactly. That's the crucial point. While CS gas is used domestically for crowd control under the Chemical Weapons Convention, its use as a method of warfare is banned.
Why is that distinction so important in warfare?
Because in a battle situation, using something like CS isn't about dispersing a crowd. It's about, well, incapacitating soldiers, flushing them out of protected positions, making them vulnerable to attack, which is precisely what's alleged here.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Or perhaps disturbing is the better word. The report details how it's supposedly being used against Ukrainian soldiers and shelters, seemingly to force them out into the open, where they're then targeted with conventional weapons, shot.
Yes, that tactical description is key. And the intelligence agencies, they use some very strong language to characterize this. They state the use of these prohibited weapons has become, and this is a direct quote, standardized and commonplace in Ukraine.
Standardized and commonplace. That phrase really lands heavily.
It does. It implies this isn't, isolated incidents or rogue actions.
It suggests something more systematic.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
It points toward it being integrated into regular tactics, maybe seen as an effective way to overcome certain battlefield challenges, like well-defended positions.
So not necessarily mass casualty events, but a lower level, more frequent use.
That seems to be the implication, a sort of tactical tool rather than a strategic shock weapon. And that normalization, that everyday use, is deeply concerning from an arms control perspective.
Lowers the threshold significantly.
Precisely.
Okay, so if these allegations hold weight, it runs right up against international law. Russia is a signatory to the Chemical Weapons Convention, the CWC.
That's correct. A key point.
And that treaty explicitly bans using both chloropicrin and CS gas as weapons in war. No ambiguity there.
Not at all. So these reported actions, if confirmed, would constitute a clear violation.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, what about enforcement or investigation? The OPCW, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, comes to mind.
Right. The OPCW is the international watchdog here, and they have actually flagged several incidents involving CS gas in Ukraine before.
Okay, so they're aware of some issues.
They are. But a full-scale, comprehensive investigation into these broader claims, this idea of standardized and commonplace use, well, that generally requires a formal request from member states.
And has that happened yet?
Not specifically for these widespread allegations detailed in this latest intelligence, as far as the report indicates. It's expected the OPCW's executive committee will discuss the Ukraine conflict at its next meeting, though.
So the mechanism exists, but it needs to be formally triggered for a deep dive investigation on this specific set of claims.
Essentially, yes. And initiating that can sometimes involve political considerations among member states.
I see. Meanwhile, officials are reacting. The Dutch defense minister, Ruben Brekelmans, was quite blunt. He called for more sanctions on Moscow, more military aid for Kyiv, and he specifically warned about this idea of normalization, saying it's dangerous not just for Ukraine, but, quote, for the rest of Europe and the world.
And that's the core fear here, isn't it? The erosion of a really fundamental international norm, a norm built on the horrors of past chemical warfare. If the use of these kinds of agents does become somehow accepted or, just a standard part of the toolkit.
It changes the game entirely.
It really does. This raises an important question. What does that mean for future conflicts, for global security? It's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Now, we absolutely need to be balanced here. In situations like this, there are always conflicting narratives. We're reporting what the sources say, not endorsing claims. So on the Russian side, the AP report notes that authorities didn't immediately comment on these specific intelligence findings, but it also points out that Russia has consistently denied using chemical weapons in the past.
Yes. And they've also, in turn, accused Ukraine of using banned substances. So there are accusations going both ways.
And Ukraine, for its part, has made its own very serious claims. They assert Russia has carried out something like 9,000 chemical attacks since the full-scale invasion started in 2022. Again, we're just relaying the claims here.
It's a huge number. And just to add one more piece from the source material, there is some external data mentioned. The U.S. State Department apparently recorded an instance of chloropicrine use against Ukrainian troops earlier in 2024.
So that's another data point from a different source, aligning with at least part of the intelligence assessment.
Correct. It adds another layer, though verification in a war zone remains incredibly difficult, of course.
Absolutely. It just underscores for you, the listener, how complex it is to get concrete, verified information amidst the fog of war. These reports present a huge challenge. So what does this all mean? As we wrap up this deep dive, the core takeaway seems to be these intelligence findings painting a really troubling picture. They suggest potentially a systematic shift in tactics with this alleged standardized and commonplace use of banned chemicals.
Yes, and it throws the spotlight back onto the international legal framework the CWC and the bodies meant to uphold it, like the OPCW. The calls for sanctions, for continued vigilance, they reflect the seriousness with which these allegations are being taken and the need to, well, reinforce those international prohibitions. Ongoing monitoring and investigation are critical.
Definitely. So a final thought to leave you with, just consider the wider implications if this kind of chemical weapon use did truly become normalized, integrated into conflicts around the world. What kind of precedent would that set? And what power does international pressure, sustained attention actually have to prevent that future? What stands out most to you from all this?